Welcome to the Joy School Podcast. Real talk about what it takes to create your happiest, healthiest, and most dynamic life. And now, here's your host, transformational life coach, happiness strategist, and best-selling author, Kristi Ling Spencer.
Hey friends, thank you for being with me for another episode of the show. This is episode number 10 of season 1, the final episode of this season. And we will be back in just a few weeks with a brand new season and 10 more episodes. So be sure to subscribe so that you're alerted when season 2 comes out. And also join me on social media because, of course, I'll be announcing it there and sharing what some of the topics are. And also, I love getting your feedback. So if you have ideas for things you'd like me to talk about in the new season, then drop me a note, send me a DM or put a comment on my Instagram or Facebook. I see them all. I actually run all my own social media. I get agencies a lot coming to me asking me to hire them to run my social media, but I actually enjoy connecting directly with you all and taking the time to do it myself. So it's always me there and I read everything. So please join me. And what I wanted to do was, for the final episode of this season, leave you with some tools that will support you in the long term, not just over the next few weeks until the next season comes out, but over the long term, building tools in your toolbox to help you through bumpy times. Now, it seems to me, and I don't know if you all have been picking up on this vibe, but I definitely have. This has been a tough few months for a lot of people, and there are so many people going through incredibly huge, difficult life changes right now. There's a lot of transitioning happening. There seems to be a lot of loss happening, and there are things going on in the world that are affecting us all very deeply. And so while special tools and techniques are needed all the time to deal with the ups and downs of life, I feel like when really big stuff happens, which happens to all of us, when we're going through something difficult, we need extra tools and automatic responses that we can step into to support us through those times. I recently did a post. It was actually a video I did over on Instagram and TikTok. And I talked in it a bit about how there's a misunderstanding that happy people are happy all the time. And I've dealt with this myself, being a coach and being somebody who's written a best-selling book on happiness, and I speak about it. A lot of people have the impression that I'm happy all the time, and that is just not true. In fact, it couldn't be further from the truth. My work in this whole area stemmed through finding my way and learning all the tools I could and what works and what doesn't work in order to improve my own life and become a happier person. And I discovered so many incredibly effective things and techniques and practices that I felt compelled to share them with the world. And now this is going on 13 years now that I've been doing this work. But I still have my rough times and my rough days. And I think the difference is that people that regularly work hard for their happiness, because you do have to work hard for it. It takes work and it takes courage. And people that are in that state, that live that way, in that lifestyle, have tools in their toolbox that support them through difficult times. And I think that may sometimes give the impression that they're doing just fine, even though everything's hitting the fan, right? And it's not necessarily true, but it definitely helps in life to have a toolbox full of supportive things that we can tap into on a daily basis, but also really tap into when something tragic or difficult or a transition occurs in our life. And so I wanted to just share a few of the basic ones with you today. And I encourage you to get notes or listen to this episode a couple of times and start focusing on these things to add them to your toolbox. And in whatever form of these items works for you, whatever resonates with you and calls to you, because you can customize each of these things in a way that will work to support you on a gloomy day or when something awful happens in your life or something unexpected that's going to be difficult to navigate. You're going to need support. And the number one person to give you support is always going to be you. So how do you do that? Well, you do that with a set of practices and mindset tools that you tap into automatically. And the more you do it and the more you think about this, and I encourage you to even keep a journal and write down a list of the things so that when you are feeling emotional or a little bit overwhelmed, you don't really have to think about this stuff. You can grab that journal or that list or wherever it is, and you can open it up and you can have your list of things right there that help you and support you. After a while of doing this, you may not even need the journal because you will have default settings that you will go to, that your brain will automatically go to when you need them. But for now, just starting to take steps toward working toward having these things in your toolbox can make a tremendous difference for you in supporting you through all the ups and downs in life. Now, one thing I know for sure is that when things don't go our way, there will always be another path or another way. And many, many times it's a better way. So knowing this always helps me. This is sort of something I focus on when I'm in the midst of a lot of stuff raining down on me. I always close my eyes and remember that at some point I will be guided to another path and it will likely be better or it will be healing. You know, sometimes when you experience a loss in your life, there are really no words to describe grief because it's such a personal and individual thing. But when you have mindset tools and self-care practices in place to help you through the most difficult times in life, it does lead you to a healing path. Eventually, you will get there. And if you have these tools, you can get to a healing path a little bit quicker. And that's really what it's all about. Just giving yourself a little extra support in life. None of us is perfect at this. And I always like to say too, sometimes the most graceful way to handle something awful is to be decidedly ungraceful. And what I mean by that is when things happen and you get blindsided, sometimes the first step toward taking a healthy path to healing is throwing a fit. And throwing a fit, screaming into a pillow, beating up a pillow, having a heartfelt conversation with somebody about boundaries and being firm about it, whatever it is, throwing a fit is okay now and then and actually very healthy. So I'm getting sort of off into the weeds here, but that is one little tool that you can add to your toolbox is giving yourself permission to throw a fit once in a while. It's okay because holding it in is where the real problems can arise. Okay, so I want to share you 3 of kind of my default settings that I go to and that I know many people use and go to when things get tough, when it seems like everything sucks, right? And there are days like that. And, you know, sometimes we have days like that and it doesn't even have to be because something tragic or awful has happened in our life. It might just be because we're just in a bad place and we're just having a rotten day. We're human going through a human experience and that's going to happen. So these 3 things I'm going to share with you actually apply in all of those areas because they're pretty basic. And, you know, I will say that when you go into survival mode or mode to dig yourself out of the muck, getting back to the basics can be really helpful and get you focused on the steps forward. So the first thing I do when I'm going through something or just having a gloomy day or I get blindsided by something in life is I immediately step into big time self-care mode and I amp it up in major ways. So I will drop a lot of things off my calendar. I will cancel things that I've committed to and I will focus on my self-care. And that means different things to different people. But for me, I like to take time for connecting in nature. I will go on a hike or a long walk and really do some deep breathing and get reconnected with source and with the universe and with nature, because that really helps bring me back to center so that I can focus my thoughts where I need to focus them at that time. I am a big advocate for body work and massage. I think it is so important. For me, it is not a luxury. It is part of my healthcare practice. I do schedule a massage every month, but if I'm going through something difficult, I will prioritize getting an extra one in. I will call the studio where I go and find out if they have any cancellations, and I will get in for a massage because it is amazing how healing that is and how it helps your body stay in alignment with trying to support your health when you're going through a tough time. Because when things happen in life and things are difficult, it does affect our immune system. Absolutely. Anger, sadness, high levels of emotion do directly affect our immune system. And one way to boost it, and actually all the things I'm talking about on today's episode will help boost our immune system. But one solid, scientifically proven way to boost it is through massage or yoga. And if you're on a really tight budget, which some of us tend to be when times get tough, right? Sometimes those things go hand in hand. There are lots of free yoga classes and meditation classes right on YouTube. And you can put a blanket on the floor in your bedroom or living room and create a little retreat for yourself. So some of these things do not have to cost any money. And a yoga class can be as good as a massage to me, for relaxing and aligning my body with health and healing. Or any kind of an exercise class, really, for that matter. But yoga tends to connect mind and body. And so I definitely recommend that when things get tough. Another thing you can do is take a mental health day. And trust me, as difficult as this seems sometimes, the world will not end if you do this. And I want to make something really clear. In the past, things like mental health days, people laugh at it like it's frivolous, right? It is absolutely not frivolous. Mental health is health. If you're not feeling right emotionally and mentally, it is the same thing as being down with a cold or flu. You are not well on that particular day, and dropping everything to take care of your health is perfectly okay. And you need to give yourself permission for that because there's so much pressure put on us by jobs and by other people to just, suck it up, put on your big girl panties or whatever it is and make it happen, even if you're not feeling up to it. And I think all that does is prolong feeling like crap. Take a mental health day. It is so good for you now and then. And by the way, if you say, I'm not feeling well today, I'm not coming in, or I'm not feeling well today, I'm going to have to reschedule, you are not lying. You are telling the absolute truth. It's a complete misunderstanding that mental health and physical health are different. They are not different. It is all health, my friends. So give yourself permission to take a step back. And you don't have to give an explanation to anybody. It's perfectly fine just to say, I'm feeling a little under the weather today, or I'm not feeling so great today, right? You don't have to give any more information than that. And another thing that can help along this same path is to call friends. Call friends who love you and make you laugh and who will listen to you, because talking openly about where you're at is a huge help when times get dark. And by the way, we're going to talk about this later in our Joy School Habits at the end of the show, but I recommend this regularly. Connecting with people. It's so easy to feel isolated and disconnected. And I know during the pandemic, this affected many people deeply, especially single people who lived alone, being isolated like that for so long. We are social animals and we are meant to connect and we are meant to be supported by people we love and admire and respect. And we have to work to invite that into our lives. So next, I want to mention what I do is I go into super healthy eating mode. So number one is super self-care mode. And this sort of falls into that, but super healthy eating mode. So when I know my immune system is being affected by something going on in my life or a chapter that I'm in, I step up and I eat healthy generally all the time, but I really step it up. I will cut out almost all alcohol. I might have a glass of red wine to unwind myself in the evening, but that is really it. I will cut out alcohol. I will cut out sugar. I will cut out anything that is not serving me to be healthy and feel better. And that's not to say don't indulge a little bit. I'll have a big bowl of macaroni and cheese every day if I could. And I don't every day, but if I'm going through a tough time, I will allow myself a plate of comfort food or a bowl of comfort food, but I try to make it healthy, right? I make this amazing gluten-free macaroni and cheese with everything organic and low fat, and it's fantastic. And by the way, that's another quick habit that you can do is kind of like the swipe this for that or eat this, not that for a lot of things. I've been working on that this past year, and I've made so many swaps in my diet that don't leave me feeling deprived, where I can still eat the things I enjoy, but in a much healthier way. So that's just a little food for thought there. And that can help support you, not just in everyday life, but when you're going through hard times. You especially want to be eating things that you know will support your immune system and your well-being. So I actually did a TV segment on this a few years back where I talked about specific foods that help boost your emotional state and help you feel better. There are healthy carbs that can help your brain balance out with the chemicals that it needs to feel better. There are healthy foods that directly affect the way you feel. And there are supplements that can affect the way you feel. So I do encourage you to talk to your doctor and do some research about what will work for you as an individual, and then add those things to your super healthy eating mode that you are going to step into when you're going through a tough time. And then I encourage you to let those things spill over into your everyday life so they become part of your lifestyle. It's all part of leveling things up and having your regular go-to things that support you in creating your happiest, healthiest life, right? But when you're going through a hard time, number one, it's important to go into overdrive in self-care mode and overdrive in super healthy eating mode. Number three, the last one I'll recommend, because I know I've given you a lot in this episode, and that's kind of why I mentioned you might want to listen to it more than once and take notes. And really, like I said, this is all about what works for you. What works for me might be a little different than what works for you, or what works for your best friend might be different than what works for you. So it's really about trial and error and finding out what really supports you and lifts you up and helps you feel happier and healthier when things are tough, but also on a regular basis, right? So number three is go outside of your regular habits and comfort zone. Do something different. Break things up and shake things up. This really can be a big help. And if you're inspired, feel free to make it epic. Take a trip or go to a museum that you've always wanted to visit that's in your city. Really get outside of your comfort zone and do something different, because this changes your brain chemistry. It changes your outlook on things. And it can really support you in getting out of negative or thought patterns or thoughts that are not serving you into thoughts that can serve you and empower you to handle whatever it is on your plate. So what a good idea that I suggest is, and I actually have a separate journal. I have a lot of journals, my friends. I keep journals for so many things, but I have a journal of things that I want to do or really enjoy doing that are outside of my regular lifestyle or everyday comfort zone. So, because it's easy to kind of get stuck and you're like, oh, I'm trying to think of an idea. I'd like to go do something today to get out of the house or get me out of this funk that I'm in, but I can't really think of anything, because it is hard to come up with those ideas when you are in a funk or feeling down. So if you've got a list somewhere or a journal with lots of ideas in it, all you have to do is crack that open. So, and it's also a fun thing to sit and sort of brainstorm about things you'd like to do. What are some of the places in your city you've never visited or that you haven't visited on a regular basis that you love? There is a dog beach here in LA, a little bit north, that is magical. There are just dogs running around everywhere. And when I lived here full time, even when I didn't have a dog, sometimes I would bring a snack and something to drink and go sit down at that dog beach and just watch the dogs run around, because there's pretty much nothing happier than dogs frolicking in the waves, chasing tennis balls, wagging their tails. So brainstorm some ideas for yourself to get you out of your zone, out of your familiar space. This is such a supportive tool, not only in everyday life, but especially when times are tough and something happens in your life that you need to navigate. When you're going through these things, you want to get yourself into the best possible place to be able to work through whatever it is that's on your plate. None of us are immune to hard times and loss and grief and stress, but there are ways to navigate these things that can be supportive and help us get through them in a better way. And that's really what I wanted to get you started thinking about with this episode. I hope these tips have been helpful for you. I'm just kind of sharing from my heart what works for me. And maybe some of these things resonated with you. And you might want to just journal about some additional ideas that do resonate with you. Because like I said, it's all about creating a personalized plan. All right, that brings us to the segment of the show, Joy School Habits. In each episode, I share a small actionable habit that is pretty easy to create that has great results, that can produce great results. So for this episode, and this kind of ties back into what I was speaking about earlier, once per week or more often, if you feel inclined, pick up the phone. No text, no email, but actually pick up the phone and call a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. In this day with all the texting, I mean, some people never talk on the phone. All they do is text, right? And send memes. And I know I'm guilty of this now and then. I'll go 2-3 weeks without actually talking to another human on the phone. It's all texting. But let me tell you, I can actually feel it physically in my body when I have had a lack of human connection for a long enough period of time. And as I mentioned earlier, we're social animals. Part of our health, part of our mental health and our physical health is linked to the connections that we have in our life. And this is proven by science. And so picking up the phone once a week and connecting with someone you love and adore who you haven't talked to for a while not only keeps those friendships and those relationships stronger, but it keeps you and that friend stronger or relative or whoever it is you're calling. It is such a healthy habit to get into. So once a week, and I recommend you start today, call someone you love and adore who you haven't spoken to in a while. And if your time is limited, it's perfectly okay to say, hey, I had an extra few minutes. I'm heading out to an event here in a little bit, or whatever your appointment is, or whatever it is you have to get to work. But while I had a little time, I was just thinking of you and I wanted to call and say hello and catch up for a few and see how you're doing. There are ways to manage it because I know I have friends that if I'm going to call them, I know it's going to last an hour and you don't always have that much time. But sometimes you do, and that can be great. It is so soulful to have a long conversation on the phone with a friend. Now, an alternative to this, if you want to see someone in person, is you can send a text and say, can you jump on Zoom? Let's do a Zoom happy hour, or let's have lunch on Zoom, whatever it is. But at the very least, once a week, pick up the phone. Create more connection for yourself in your life and more connection for the people you care about. All right. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, if this served you in some way, I would be so grateful. 2 things. Number 1, if you'd leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, this helps the show reach more people who might also enjoy it. And I do read them all. And number 2, let me know on social media. Find me over on Instagram or Facebook and drop me a comment. And let me know how you've enjoyed this season, this first 10 episodes of the new edition of the show, or how a specific episode might have helped you. I always love hearing from you. And if you've got ideas for season 2, please let me know. I've actually already received a couple and I am taking notes. I am very excited to be back with you in just a few weeks. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned when season 2 drops. It's not going to be too far away. And I will also be announcing it on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, so be sure to follow me there. All right, friends, remember, you've got what it takes to create more amazing days, and more amazing days make up a pretty amazing life. Have a fantastic week, my friends, and I will be back with you soon. Much love and cheers, everybody. Have a great one.